Are we sending our best, Kyle?
I don't know. I mean, the Packers are pretty good, right? The Packers are at least
we're
worth
sending
something.
2 3-1 teams. This is probably one of the most meaningful games we've sent to London.
No. This is the greatest law I can teach. If you're teaching people about football, not all 3-1 teams are created equal, because the gulf between the Packers and Giants, I'm going to guess, because it's a neutral field, it's going to be like 9 points in favor of Green Bay. And again, these teams are supposed to have the same record. No.
They win an ugly game against the Bears, which, going in, you can expect that was going to be an ugly game, a low offensive scoring game. But it's not like the Packers were beating the doors off the Patriots, who dropped down to Bailey Zappi. Plenty of people in the Boston area got their wish and saw Bailey Zappi this weekend, and took them to an overtime game against this Packers team. They haven't looked that great, but did we expect them to look that great? You lose Devontae Adams from this offense, they were going to take a little bit of a step back in the wide receiving core. Sammy Watkins gets immediately hurt, because that's something that Sammy Watkins has done throughout his career. Yeah. The Packers have taken a step back offensively. The Giants, they've taken a step forward in the sense that they're capable, but they're capable of putting up 20 points a game. That's where the ceiling is. And that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest indictment on Daniel Jones and his future moving forward in the NFL and securing his spot as an NFL backup, because you just aren't going to win a lot of games just doing that. I mean, they won 3 to this point, but that's just high level effort by their defense. And I will say, if you want to say the pieces are there for the Giants to turn into a team that could win more games in the future, they have a defense, they have a running game. They just don't have a quarterback, and they also have a weird wide receiving room as well.
With the New York Giants, we're focusing on the wrong W's and L's, because with the New York Giants, the thing that always gets brought up is wins and losses. The real WL we should be focusing on is Will Levis. That's the WL that matters for the New York Giants. Their whole season exists to be better than the teams that are actively tanking, but bad enough so that they can draft Will Levis.
Well, hopefully for them, Will Levis drops in the draft after, he had an ugly injury this week. His fingers were pointing in the wrong direction, to say the least. Look it up on Google. Not going to throw it on here because I'm pretty sure that gets you demonetized on YouTube. But hey, I encourage everyone to look up the Will Levis finger. I'm sure this would be the top.
Yeah,
Google
broken
result.
finger that they just popped back into place, and they were like, yeah, you're good. Go back out there. And then lose to Ole Miss.
Well, he's a guy. He's a dude. I can say that. If he's
but
able
doubled
to go
down
in there
by the
after
fact that if you very quietly in the draft last year, New York Giants took Wan'Dale Robinson with that weird wide receiver class from where? The University of Kentucky. That's right. New York Giants, Will Levis, 2022. We're going to basically rebuild Kentucky football, which will lose to every team in the NFC East, but it's the best we can do because we're the sad New York Giants and we're in the middle of a second decade of mediocrity.
Should I be blaming Daniel Jones? I mean, this is a bad wide receiving core that he has. I mean, he has Richie James Jr. as his top wide receiver, a 7th round pick from Middle Tennessee, the former San Francisco 49ers special teamer. That's his best wide receiver he has to throw to. And you look around, obviously Galladay turned into the worst contract in the NFL, probably, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not even playing. I think that's, at least, you look around other bad contracts in the NFL. And
0 touchdowns, 0 touchdowns since signing his contract.
What do you have? 2 drops last week too? 3 drops?
Yeah, no, it's bad. And my favorite stat from last season is that you could take the top 4 leading receivers on the New York Giants. Top 4 leading receivers had fewer yards of offense than Jamar Chase.
Yeah, so maybe I'm misplacing some level of blame, but I will say that you're happy with Dayball and the early returns here, that he's given you a little bit of a spark. He's at least made you a consistent team. So I would say, if without knowing the line, like if you told me it was a 9-point line, I might actually be tempted to take the Giants +9, because I think that they can stay in games. They are that type of team that will always stay in a game.
In terms of the Packers, I think a lot's been said about their offense so far, but the Packers defense has been in an interesting limbo this year, because obviously their team last year was built on additions like Rasul Douglas and Devondre Campbell, which they weren't expecting big numbers from those types of players, but then they signed them to contract extensions expecting numbers to increase. And this year, according to DVOA numbers, they have the 18th ranked defense in the NFL so far, which again, not great, but also not the worst in the league. And Green Bay is defensively built on players who were not the same players who, remember when Green Bay had that top defense in, what was that, 2019, the year they lost to the Niners in the playoffs? They had a top 3 defense that year. And these are all new players for the most part. It's
you lose guys like
Rashawn
Zadarius
Gary.
Smith, and
Yeah.
that's going to.
It was
take a
Zadarius
knock.
Smith, Preston Smith. Now it's Rashawn Gary. It's Jair Alexander. They still have Rasul Douglas, of course, and Devondre Campbell. Makes it so that they don't have the worst middle linebacking unit in the NFL, where it's like post Blake Martinez, they really couldn't do anything defensively in the middle until Devondre Campbell got there. So, I mean, the Packers are fine. I wouldn't read too much into the Bailey Zappi putting up a bunch of yards on them. I would look more into like, hey, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson could pretty much do whatever they wanted against the offensive line because they just couldn't get pressure, and just gave Kirk Cousins all day to find. You can't guard Justin Jefferson for longer than 5 seconds. So like eventually he's going to get open. And I think that's more of a concern than anything else. But the Giants won't take advantage of that. The Giants are just going to run the football and run the football again and then run the football again, because not only do they have 2 backup quarterbacks, they have 2 backup quarterbacks that are now both hurt. So
that is another thing going in here, right? That Daniel Jones is hurt going into this game. We'll see how that goes.
The Giants are in such a weird place because the team is good, but on the flip side, they're in a transition phase. Like they're 3-1 right now, but they're not going to be they're not going to have a winning record at the end of the season. They're probably going to finish better than Washington, just because it looks like Washington's one of these tanking teams this year. And the New York Giants are kind of in that transition. And again, I will say that the W's and L's they should be focused on is Will Levis. Will they be bad enough to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud? No, they will not. Therefore, they should get the next best thing, and that's Will Levis. And you know, I think Saquon's headed for a nice big contract extension this offseason, because when you already make one mistake, might as well double down on it. When they took Saquon Barkley over Josh Allen in the 2018 draft, might as well double down on it at this point and keep rolling it with Saquon.
So I kind of don't like doing that, only because I don't know if Josh Allen would have turned to Josh Allen being with the Giants.
Totally fair. Totally fair. It's just Dave Gettleman provided so much comic relief because every decision he made was bad. We haven't even mentioned Kadarius Toney, who, by the way, was the major piece that they got in the Justin Fields trade. Now, ultimately, they also got Evan Neal, so I won't say it was like the worst thing in the world. Like Evan Neal's going to be a very good offensive lineman, but like they passed on Justin Fields or Micah Parsons, who was also available with that pick, and flipped it into Kadarius Toney. And Kadarius Toney is basically on his way out of New York and maybe out of the league. I don't know. Like he'll latch on somewhere that better knows how to utilize him, but looks like headed out of the league because, again, the New York Giants are running the ball a bunch and Saquon's the leading rusher in the NFL, but I think that's more out of necessity than it is out of like desire to run that type of offense.
So I'm taking the Packers. But not knowing the point line, I would say if this was more than a touchdown, I would take the Giants plus the points.
I could totally see that. I'm with you on taking Green Bay because Green Bay is a playoff team. Then, like I've talked about before in previous videos, there's a lot of very good teams in the NFC and no great team in the NFC, and I think the Packers kind of encapsulate that because the Packers and Bucks would be the teams that I point to and say, well, of course they're going to be great, and both teams have not looked great to start the season. Will they figure it out as the season goes along? Perhaps. According to my count, the Packers have used up 1 Sammy Watkins game up to this point. You get 3 of them every year. They've used 1 of them. Obviously, he's hurt now, so maybe they have to wait till later in the season for that to come around. But yeah, the Packers have just kind of been a okay offense that obviously has Aaron Rodgers. So they're not going to be terrible. They're going to score 24 points a game. And the question is whether their defense can prevent the other team from scoring 24 points.
Okay, London. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this one. Giants-Packers 10 years ago would have been a great game for you. You're getting in 2022. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment below who you think is going to win this game, and stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you on the next one.